It's Winning Women Wednesday, celebrating women who rise, lead, and inspire. Right here with Katie and Samm.
Okay, it's that time of the week. We do this every week. It is our bae. Are you our bae? Katie Mohamed.
Let's see, shall
our
we?
Winning Women bae.
Okay, he agrees. Matthew, am I a bae?
You're a bae.
Oh,
You're a bae.
You're a bae.
I'll take it. I take
Okay,
it.
there's a whole bunch of us here in the studio. In the studio. My friend, how are you doing?
Very well this week, much better.
What is our mission?
Our mission is to celebrate, uplift, and empower women continentally, South Africa, globally. And we want to celebrate women that reshape narratives.
100%.
And as I say, if women win, we all win.
We all win.
Yes.
That's going to become a saying.
Yes.
You should trademark that.
Yes.
I don't know who said it, by the way. Okay, what is our focus this week?
Okay.
Oh, by the way, congratulations on your, let's announce it here. But wait, hold on. Let's do this. Wait.
Let's
do this. We need to announce this properly, right? I'm going to do the whole sound effect thing. Congratulations on your own show now. So tell us before we get into this, what's happening? You got your own show now.
Yes.
We are being separated by the hip and the face. We were conjoined, but now we're being separated.
Absolutely. So yes, I am. So thank you for that, Sam. And you have been instrumental for this, and you've taught me.
I don't take any credit for that.
But I have a new show on Wednesday evening between 6 and 7 on 919 FM, and it's called The Influence Equation.
And tell us a little bit more. What does that mean for us plebs?
Yeah, plebs, is that we talk about influencers, we talk about influential people, but how do we all... So there's a thing that I do, which is called the Influence Masterclass. It's really, there's a formula and there's an equation. And most of us live our lives via a formula. An equation, you have your control of your own equation, which means you have your own voice, you have your own story, and you create impact. So the influence equation is really about meeting and talking and having conversations with people that have used their voices to shape their own narrative and become influential.
We love it. I'm here on Wednesday. I'm going to be sitting on that side watching you.
Thank you.
Okay, what are we talking about today? So everybody's got to tune in at 6 to 7 on a Wednesday. It's a brand new slot hosted by Katie Mohamed, and we're going to talk to strategists, thinkers, people that influence.
Absolutely. And our lineup is pretty influential, if I might say that.
Can you share with us a little?
We have Sarah Langer, Lynn Forbes, Soweto, the likes of... the influential, and it's not only going to be women. So I have a list of men that we need to confirm, and it's going to be great thought leaders, trailblazers, and also what got them to pivot as well. I think that's the most important things we want to know, their pivot.
100%.
Okay,
Love
but
it.
today isn't just a Wednesday. I always say it's a moment and it's a movement, and today we celebrate Pan-African Women's Day.
Yes.
This is for every woman who has held a family, rebuilt a nation, led in silence, and roared when the world was ready to listen. And today we are holding space for her. I would say H-E-R, her. For the ones who came before us and the ones who are still walking with us. And when we talk about... So today is not about an inspirational day. It's an educational day, and it's going to be a history lesson. So it's going to be very different. It's going to be a history lesson. So where did it all begin? Sam, do you know the history of the Pan-African Women's Day?
No, I don't.
Can you believe that? You know that there's a whole day dedicated to Pan-African women.
Yeah, I know this because you told me.
Okay.
I
Wow.
didn't know this before.
I am very influential, I have to say.
I mentioned a little bit earlier, this is what we're going to talk about. I did not know that they existed.
Okay,
and I'm happy to admit that publicly.
Okay, so it's going to be a history lesson for all of us. So let me tell you, let's rewind 31st of July, 1962. Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, women from across the continent gathered not to chat, but to actually chart a future. They formed the Pan-African Women's Organization, which is called PAWO. And it was the first of its kind, but it was an alliance of women across borders, but also cultures and languages. And they were united towards one thing, and it's one of my favorite words that I used to use. It's liberation. So imagine, it's now the oldest women collective movement from 1962
On the continent or in the world?
in the continent.
Okay.
So the PAWO's founding statement said, the freedom of Africa cannot be realized without the freedom of African women. So just imagine, they had the courage and they had the vision in 1962. So Winnie Mandela once said, the struggle is my life. But she wasn't the only one, because there were thousands of unnamed women. There were spies, and I mean, I know it sounds like a movie, but there were spies, there were messengers, and there were mothers who cooked and coded resistance. So today we are here to honor them. So if we look at the year I was born, 1970s, from liberation to resurrection. So women that played critical roles in liberation struggles. So let's look at Angola. And do you remember when we were watching news back in the day, there was that MPLA word that we used.
Yes.
So there was a woman called Deolinda Rodriguez who fought with the MPLA. And this is in the 70s. And in Zimbabwe, do you remember ZANU and ZAPU?
Yes.
I remember this from the news. So women were part of that armed struggle under ZANU and ZAPU from Zimbabwe. And Mozambique, our very own mom, Grasha Michel's mother, Justina Michel, she was 25 when she was the leading organizer for Free Limo, which was... Right?
Yeah.
And
Still a political organization
and
today.
Justina's funeral in 1971 became a national symbol of female sacrifice and strength. So if you could just look at the courage and the vision that these women had from the 70s, fast forward here. So I think it was really... it was like resistance to actually leadership. So they started with resistance, and then it became about leadership of women. In a patriarchal society in Africa, if you think about it.
It was even more.
It was even more. But they stood up. They were independent African nations, and they started integrating women in parliament. And that was so powerful. Contrary to what people think that Africa is so backward. I mean, this is what was happening
But that's mostly Americans.
Yes. Yeah, true.
Let me be that guy. I'll be that guy.
Yes. So the Pan-African Women's Day became an annual event, and it started being observed in several countries, particularly those with liberation legacies like Angola, Tanzania, Algeria, and Mozambique. So in 1986, a PAWO delegate said, we were freedom fighters, but now we are builders. We build economies, we build policies, and we build futures. So if we look at African women now, as we sit, we should honor these women because they were trailblazers back in the day. So they definitely rewrote the African women narrative. Yep. And in the 1990s, the famous Beijing Declaration in 1995, they shifted the global language on women's rights. So African feminists challenged the dominance of Western feminists. So it didn't become a man versus women thing. It became Africa versus the West. And I love this. So African feminists challenged the dominance of Western feminist narratives. And then the new leaders emerged, like Wangari Maathai from Kenya, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for her environmental and women's rights work. And then Ellen Johnson from Liberia. Salif from Liberia.
Was one of the first female presidents, actually, on the continent. That
was a preparation for women leadership. And she became Africa's first elected female head of state in 2006. I mean... Imagine
groundbreaking work.
Groundbreaking in the 21st century. So fast forward to how the Pan-Africanism started expanding in the early 2000s. It's the African Union formally recognized the Pan-African Women's Day in its annual calendar. So it does form under the African Union. So then NEPAD, the AU Women's Decade, and Agenda 2063 began to integrate the gender rights. The gender equity rights. So in Congo, women built schools, and this was an African woman at the heart of peace and development in 2005, said in Congo, women built schools in bombed out towns. In Somalia, they negotiated ceasefires. we've always been more than victims. We've been visionaries. And I think that is quite profound.
We've always been more than victims.
We've been visionaries, yes. And if you look at fast forward to 2010, the digital era and youth power. So social media platforms began amplifying the voices of African women. So we started bring back movements like bring back the girls. Fees must fall. So those became quite powerful in the continent, and they featured bold women leading online. So you could see how it started and where it's going. And this became offline activism as well. In Nigeria, young activist Aisha Yusufa emerged as a symbol of defiance. So I love how we look at these women, and I think it's such a African cultural thing that we use them as symbols. And in the Western world, you don't see that. You don't see women as a symbol of. So here it is a symbol of defiance. And in South Africa, women-led protests against gender-based violence, and then the launch hashtag #AmINext, which was a big campaign in the early 2019-18. And then 2020, from representation to redistribution, more African countries reached 30 to 50% female representation in parliament. I mean, that is kudos.
Is that South Africa, right? But that was under...
No, that's Africa.
Africa, but I know that under Jacob Zuma as well, when he was president, there was a massive drive to have equity in parliament, and I think he was one of the first presidents to have equal representation between men and women in parliament.
Yes, and then we had our first deputy president at that time. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. Yeah. And then, of course, up until now, Rwanda has led over 60% of women in leadership.
Wow.
And then the Director General of WTO, which is the first African and first woman to do so, was Ngozi Ogoncho-Iweala, became the Director General at WTO. And then digital entrepreneurship surged across the continent. So this has been led by young female founders. And founders are extremely important. Because it's fintech, fashion, and e-learning started the digital entrepreneurship world. So in 2020, I think we all know the African Union's theme of silencing the guns, where they were creating conducive conditions for Africa's development. That was the theme. And in 2021, it was financial inclusion for African women. In 2022, it was called Digit-All, which was innovation and technology for gender equality. So I think if you look at the history of how the Pan-African Women's Organization came to light over the years. And
developed and evolved.
And has been a huge evolution. So I'd like to share some impactful stories. One from South Africa. It's a spaza shop story. And it's a township mother who used her profits from a home-run shop to educate all three of her daughters. And one became a daughter. And she told reporters, I couldn't read the textbook.
One became a doctor, you said?
One became a doctor, yeah.
Okay.
And she told one of the reporters, I couldn't read the textbooks, but I bought them. And that is just so profound when you have a woman that's like, I can't read, but I bought the textbooks. And I created a new generation of women. I think I get emotional when I think about the power of women, of African women. And then in Tanzania, Mama Sarah, a 72-year-old midwife who helped deliver over 5,000 babies.
I think I saw that story.
In rural villages.
Yeah.
She trained other women in hygiene and childbirth safety with only basic schooling.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I saw that on BBC Africa or France or one of the France platforms. Yeah, the French
and it
platforms.
was. And it's actually quite a powerful story as well.
Over 5,000.
So you don't have to. They didn't have to go to school, medical school. But 5,000 women in the rural children in the rural villages. I think that was amazing.
It would, of course, be problematic if they're all named John. But
why would you say John?
being silly.
Why would you be naming it John?
5,000 children all named John. I'm just being silly. I'm being silly. Okay, let's go.
And then there was the engineer in hijab in Sudan. A female civil engineer rebuilt bridges after floods in Khartoum. And she said, my head is covered, but my voice will not be. And I'm looking at the power of culture.
And even I love the words though, the power of words. Like just the way they describe it. I mean, from I can't read, but I bought the textbooks. My head is covered, but it's just amazing. From victims to visionaries.
Visionaries, yes. Yeah. And then there was a digital disruptor in Kenya. A young Maasai woman built an app to report gender-based violence anonymously, and it's now used in 3 East African countries.
Wow.
So
kudos to that lady, man.
Kudos to African women. So I'd like to ask our audiences, our listeners, which African woman inspires you and why? And what legacy do you want to leave behind as a woman of the continent? Because if you listen, these women may not be known globally.
Yeah.
But they are known in the continent and they've changed our lives.
But I often also think that for someone to be aware of their situation and then to walk out of whatever it is, whether it's their home, the hut, whatever they live in, and to say, I am actionably going to make a difference. I'm going to, irrespective my circumstances, my background, I'm actually going to make a change. With that woman delivering 5,000 people, with her limited education and then going on to educate others. I think that takes an exceptional human being.
On something that is supposed to be medical. I mean, delivering babies, right? And I think that's where the doulas have, if you look at now, the current word called doula, and that is...
It's like a midwife, right?
It is a midwife. But I mean, it's a lot of the generation, the Gen Zs are choosing to have doulas during their childbirth. So it's no more gynecologists. I need a doula.
Sure, but as a man who's witnessed the birth of his children, you must be... well, we're not assuming that even using a doula, it's not all natural births, right? There could still be meds, pains, and
I think tablets. You have the doula, but you have a plan.
You have a plan.
You have a
birth
plan. But I do think that they do have a gynecologist that's on standby, and I think people do have.
Because I was there when my daughter was born, and that was a natural birth without any pain meds, nothing. I mean, that was intense for a man to witness.
Well, now you know the power of being a woman and the power of being an African woman.
Wow.
So if our foremothers who gathered in 1962 under colonial threat to dream of freedom, what are we doing with our freedom today? And I think
moles.
Yeah, well, it's a question we ask ourselves every day. I mean, I talk about financial freedom. It's what I want women to have is financial freedom. But what are we doing with the freedom that we have, especially...
That's so hard fought.
Yeah.
And won.
So her story, as in, we say history, and I've changed the thing, as her story is power.
Her story.
Right? So let me ask you, what does being an African woman mean to you?
Since I'm not an African woman...
Well, your mother was, your wife is, your daughter is, and your friends like us are.
I'm not even going to pretend to answer that question because I don't. But as a witness, as seeing a mother wake up every day, and look, I'm a colored kid from the 70s, and we grew up amongst the gangsters, and guys that kind of took the easy way out. To have a mom stand between you and a gangster and tell you that, and kind of forge your path for you, and not just for me, for my twin brother who lives in Canada, for my sister who lives in London and all that places. I think for a woman to draw the line in the sand and saying that I don't care the environment we live in, but you're not going to become your environment, I think that's amazing.
Look, for me, and I say I come from queens, conquerors, and survivors, and I believe that because I see it in my core every day. I get up. The genetic, the DNA that I come from is strength, and that's the legacy that they've left. They might not have had much, but I feel that I've imparted that, and I've taken that. So for me, it's a lot of the stories from grandmothers. That's what makes us African women. Yeah. It's a lot of our stories.
And I think we need to spend more time listening to that generation.
Absolutely.
We haven't documented it enough. I think there are stories, there are spaces, but there are other champions in communities that never became the Grasha Michels, but they are fearless in their communities.
But I also think that you're carrying these wisdoms of our grandmothers and our great grandmothers. And then you realize that you have the weight in your hands, which means what am I doing with all of this wisdom that I from our great grandmothers and our ancestors? And I think for me it's really about. And the one important thing about being women of culture is that you realize you don't just raise yourself. You're raising a community. You're raising a tribe of women, and you are helping shape narratives. And so for me, it's like, as being an African woman, is how do I live my life out loud, and ensure that it's not a selfish growth.
Yeah,
it's not only selfless, it is self. It's. We spoke about this the other day. It's really about how are you going to be in of service to others.
Let me ask you a question. What are you doing with your freedom?
What I'm doing with my freedom is that I'm using it as a responsibility. My responsibility is to ensure that I pull up, and I know you often say that I am in my solo act, and in the solo act, I know I did have people along me, so mine is responsibility. And how do I take what I know, what I have, and ensure that I bring other women along with me? And another thing is, privilege is rooted in legacy. And if we have this legacy, it's a privilege. What are we doing with the legacy? So for me, it's responsibility and legacy, and that's what I am doing with my freedom. And I think if I could honor that, and every day I breathe that with honor, I know that if I am not here tomorrow, I have done that. So
that's amazing.
This year's theme is advancing social and economic justice for African women through reparations. Reparations, yeah.
There's certain words I can't get either.
Reparations. So I think for me, I love this because, if you educate what do they say? If you educate a man, you educate an individual. If you educate a woman, you educate a nation. And that's a Ghanaian proverb. So when we ensure that women have financial understanding, financial literacy, financial freedom, they are going to make an even more difference in our communities. So what do we do with this energy? We channel it. We support African women-led businesses. We read Herstories, and I think that's what we're not doing enough. Is reading.
We're not.
Yeah. And we vote for her rights. So let's vote for more women. We raise her name in rooms and still don't that still don't value their own voices. So we need to start raising other women's voices as well. So work with people like the Grasha Michel Trust that does amazing work, the African Women Development Fund, and another one that's called Black Women Disrupt. Those are the ones that we support. We should be support. So. For me, is if you're listening and you've ever been told you too much or too loud, remember this. You were never too much. You were just too powerful for the world that was just not ready for you. But you know what? We are building the world that we want.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
And we must. And I think all of us are we are architects, right? Whether we are in our immediate communities, in our families, we are laying down the blueprint for our children, for what that family will be, past your legacy. I think it's often said that you are planting trees for others, not for yourself, right? So that they can enjoy the fruit and the shade.
Absolutely.
I don't, who said that, by the way?
Planting trees for others.
I've heard it so many times, and I can't remember who said it. I must Google it.
Yeah, we'll Google. So I think today has been a special edition, and it has been more than just education. I think it's been historical. It's been a connection to our queens, and again, like I say, let's be clear. If African women win every day, so we win in silence, we win in struggle, in the small triumphs that no one sees. So today we see you, today we honor you, and today we say thank you.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, what do you want us to do? So you've asked us. We need to support women businesses. We need to think, and I think maybe the question is, what do you want us men to do? Because I think you always say this as well. We are the allies to women, right? You always say that.
And I think as allies, the most important thing is the Herstories. I don't think men read enough of books about women, historical women. You would, if I ask you, have you read a book about Cleopatra or Queen Nefertiti?
I have.
Well, you would have, but you are different. But how many men would say, okay, well, let me go and talk about Cleopatra? And
I've read Margaret Thatcher's
You
book.
read Margaret Thatcher's. And if you think about people that think about Cleopatra, they would think of Cleopatra only from a absolutely beautiful woman,
But in her relationship to the man.
To the man.
Not in relationship to her own power.
Yeah.
And she was very powerful.
But she was a great leader, and men listened to her. And that was what we should think about. Because like, I want to look like a Cleopatra. But what is Cleopatra? The Queen Nefertiti. And I think for me, it's men should read more her stories. And that would actually have an understanding that women are just not fighting for our rights now. It has been there for generations.
I'll tell you something interesting, which I'm sure Shelby would not even think of. The last her story I read was Britney Spears' story.
I thought you would say the last her story that you read was Katie Mohamed's Brave Today.
No, I read, but the book afterwards was Britney Spears' kind of.
Okay.
I'm in the dog box.
That was a shade. That was shade.
That was shade, by the way. Massive shade. By the way, that saying says, society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in. That's a Greek proverb. But Warren Buffett has been quoted for saying that someone sitting in the shade today is because someone planted a tree a long time ago. So
it was Warren Buffett that said that?
Well, it's a Greek proverb, but Warren Buffett's got his own version of the same thing, and he's been quoted as talking about it.
Well, it had to be some well-known Greek person that said that. But bringing it back to being an African woman, it really means I know who I am, where I come from, and who I am accountable to, because I think we forget that. Because we are accountable to the women that have come before us. And we're also accountable, if you think about it, for the generations we will never meet. So I always say is that our generation is an absolute unique generation. So if we think about that little bit of, we are accountable to our ancestors, but we are accountable for the future generation.
And we'll leave it on that high note. Katie Mohamed, always a pleasure. New show is called Influencer Equation.
Not influencer, the influence equation.
Because I know you're influencer. I'm looking at you.
Not.
Influence Equation.
He calls me an influencer, and I keep on saying I am an influential women.
Okay.
African women.
You're that too.
Yeah.
Wednesday, 6 to 7 here on 919. Catch it. But we haven't divorced. We're still doing our thing every Wednesday.
You're not getting rid of me that easily.
Yeah, just so that people wonder, is Katie leaving Sam? No, it's still continuing. And then Brave Today is out. Where can people get a copy? Because it is an amazing book.
Yes. It's on the website. It's online. And it's on at the Katie Mohamed website. So definitely. So my closing quote is, when we speak of African women, we speak of sunrise. Not because she rises easily, but because no matter how long the night, she shows up. So from me, Katie Mohamed, and all of us at 919,
Be a hero.
Pan-African Women's Day.
Feel 919.